Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it.
And on today's episode, we have a very special guest, Nicole Rousseau, dear friend. And, you know, for everyone who's listening, who's navigating grief in some form, this episode is for you. So I want you to stay tuned. And I want you to listen with your heart and just open. And I want to introduce Nicole to you today. She is a powerhouse of resilience, reinvention, and raw honesty. And after a 30-year career in high tech, 27 years of marriage, and raising 2 children, Nicole found herself navigating life as a new widow and recent retiree, all within the same week. And so trading the rainy skies of the Pacific Northwest for Southern California sunshine, she's now exploring the intersection of grief, of healing, and purpose through life coaching, sound healing, and intentional living. And her story is one of deep loss, but soulful curiosity and unexpected beginnings. So welcome, Nicole. Nicole, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you agreed to do this. And you have been walking through through this with unimaginable courage and curiosity. And I remember when I first met you, I was like, there's such a light here. I mean, there was such a curiosity about life, and without there was no closeness. It was just like, I'm ready for what's next. I'm ready to see what's next. I'm ready to see who I'm supposed to meet next and do next. And it was really beautiful and inspiring. And I'd love for you to begin by telling us what made you say yes to sharing your story today.
Ooh, well, first, thank you for having me. I wanted to share because I don't think we don't talk about grief and the impacts of grief here in the United States. It's just something, it's kind of taboo. Mm-hmm. Yet it's part of our universal experience. It's something everybody's going to go through one way, shape, or another. And I want other people to know they're not alone. I want to honor my experience, and I want to honor my husband and my family and my kids for what we went through. It's a lot, but grief isn't. It's not always super scary, but it is messy.
Yeah.
It's incredibly messy, and that's okay. We all kind of make it through on the other side, and I think if we're patient, we actually find some beautiful, beautiful gifts.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me share.
I'm so glad that you're here. I don't think that, I think like even in the West, we don't even talk about death as being natural and something that we're all going to go through. I think we try to avoid it, like you said, being taboo. And nobody gives you like a guidebook on how to navigate, grief or loss in a way that feels useful sometimes.
Yeah.
Just something about the way it's supposed to look and, kind of like one-word liners about how you should carry on, but it doesn't really address like the depth of what you go through, the metamorphosis you go through as a soul in that sense of loss.
Yeah.
And, where does that leave you? And I know that you experienced so much in just one short week. And I want to talk about like, what was that like for you? How did you feel about like where your life was taking a shift in all of that?
Well, I think when I look at grief, I think about there was like these 3 chapters. There was like what was happening before I learned about all of this, and then what happened during. So the anticipatory grief and what was happening kind of leading up to that, which was just super surreal. Mm-hmm. And then what happens after.
Yeah.
And, I think the anticipatory grief period, super rough, right? Because you're not understanding that you're really grieving, but that's what you're doing, right? Like that's what's happening to you. You're thinking about the loss, and it's kind of building up. And then suddenly it's there. And it just happened, to be 5 days before my husband passed. I mean, I knew he was on his way out. I got laid off. And there I was just kind of sitting there like, oh my gosh, like this, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do now? I mean, and I had so many other changes about ready to happen. My kids were on their way out. My daughter had just graduated and was getting ready to move to Colorado for a new job. And so it wasn't just one, I was like, I was a wife yesterday and now I'm a widow. I worked for a tech company and now I don't. I have kids that I've been raising and now I'm going to be what do they call it when you're an empty nester? So I was kind of experiencing all of the life's changes at the same time. And I'd already known I wanted to move my life forward, which is super hard in what I would call limbo land. That was the land before, I knew things were coming up. I wanted to move forward so badly. And yet you couldn't. Like, I still had responsibilities. And then boom, here I am. Now what do I do? So I booked a trip to Europe. I spent 3 weeks in Europe and a good chunk of it by myself, just kind of wandering the streets of London, one of the most beautiful places in the world. I spent some time. I met my brother and his friends in Spain, and then went to an awesome retreat in Greece. And in that time, it was just super cool. I was just kind of like, wow, like I don't have to worry about anybody right now but me.
And it was probably different than you were experiencing.
Huge. Like, I still worry about my kids. There's never going to be a time that I don't worry about them. But it was like the first time I just got to sit and go, crap, and yet, holy crap, this is super cool. Yeah. And, kind of picking through what I would call the rubble. Like, I would write pieces about grief on my Facebook page. It was part of what I've learned now is my mourning process, and understand there was a difference between grief and mourning. And, it's like grief is your internal experience, kind of what you're feeling. And
like
mourning,
the visceral.
It's like the angst, it's everything in your body. And then there's mourning, which is how you externally share that story. And I didn't realize that's I've been mourning for years leading up to the event. Yeah. So it was kind of beautiful just being able to sit and be with me and kind of think about, all right, really, what's next? So I've been thinking about moving and changing my life. My job before, I wanted to move before my husband passed and kind of begin to slowly start a new life, and I wasn't able to do that. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to do it. So
why not now?
I sold our house. 25 years of being in the same house, a lot of memories there, beautiful memories there, sad memories there. But it was time to, kind of let that shift go. Yeah. I got to let it go. I mean, I could have, chosen to stay there and grieve, or I could take the red pill. And then you can't untake it either. Then you can't untake it. So that's what I chose. So,
yeah. How was that for you with, even family or friends who maybe had different expectations of what you should do or shouldn't do? Did you have to experience any of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of unwritten rules or written rules about grief, like you shouldn't make a bunch of changes in the first year. And,
how did you navigate that?
I just decided that, none of those individuals have been part or in my lived experience. Like, I know me, and if I stayed in that same place, then I was going, I think I would be sadder. Yeah. Like, it was like, because we'd lived in the same place for 25 years. Like, my kids grew up there. All of our neighbors know, the same neighbors for years. And I think there was just a part of me, I wanted to be able to say that, like, I can do this on my own. I want to live my life on my terms, not based off of the roles that I had, been living for years, the role of wife, the role of mom, the role of neighbor, the role of, corporate America, like all of these things. I'm like, well, I want to see what am I like without it? Yeah. And so I think people were mostly supportive. And, my brother would have been the first one to call my bullshit if he thought I was doing something stupid. But I had really been thinking about moving way before, my husband passed, and knew that I needed a new beginning for me.
Yeah. I think too often, not everyone understands the process of what's happening before someone passes. And when you're talking about like the pre-grief,
Anticipatory
the
grief.
anticipatory grief, like you probably had been doing that for some time. And while the passing of someone is new to the neighbor or the friend that hasn't seen you in a long time, you've been experiencing that anticipatory grief for a while before it happens.
Many years. Like I think, one of the things, my husband had dementia and ALS. So two of the what I consider the most horrific diseases somebody could have. And on the dementia side, you start losing them before you've really lost them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really like there was a woman that once said, these are like, that's a special kind of torture, trying to be a caregiver for someone who is experiencing both. And, in my husband's case, he did not understand he was sick. So it made it worse. So it was like the same conversation over and over again, where most ALS patients actually know that, what's happening with their body. So, I had been grieving and experiencing loss for many years up to that. And, so I think, it was hard, heartbreaking. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And yet there were some absolutely incredibly beautiful gifts that happened, through the experience once I kind of let go and started allowing for those experiences to show up. I got to say the most beautiful goodbye to my husband, where, while he couldn't say it, he could just sit there and look at me. And I swear we said goodbye, just looking at each other in the eyes. And dancing to our favorite song. I had his hand up and kind of waving, and I had one hand on my heart. And, so there's beautiful parts of the goodbye if you allow it.
If you're able to open yourself to see it.
If you can open it up. And it's not easy. I was a train wreck for a couple of months. There were parts of times where, I think looking at the end of it, I had asked, my therapist was like, I go, holy crap, I actually can't believe I made it through all this shit. And, and she goes, me neither. And I was like, wait, you realize that was your out loud voice, right? Like, holy shit. And she's like, yeah, but think about all of the things that you've learned through the process. Different ways to emotionally regulate, different ways to take care of my body, my mind, my spirit. What might have crippled most people, I'm like, no, like I'm going to do this. I'm strong. I'm a strong ass, beautiful woman. I can do this.
Yep. I'm stronger than even I thought I was.
And
And when you're held to the fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's like one of the many lessons of grief is really the grit. I definitely stronger than I ever thought.
Yeah.
I was carrying the weight of, on my shoulders of, making sure that my husband had the best last few months of his life or last year of his life in a pretty shitty situation. And still trying to work. You got to keep benefits. It's very expensive having somebody. He was actually in memory care.
Yeah.
It was tough. Worrying about my kids and how they were doing. And and then I think there were moments where we all didn't cope well. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
And
messy.
is very messy. And I think we've all kind of learned, so much about each other through the process.
Yeah.
How to give each other grace.
Yeah.
Through, nobody's perfect. And
Man, you get to really find out when you're made of, when you're held to that. Like you can't run from the experience.
No. Like grief has this way of like taking a magnifying glass and showing you all of your imperfections. It's like, there there's your fear. We're going to kind of dig in. You get to wallow in that for a while. Hey, how about all those uncomfortable emotions? You're going to get to sit with them. Yeah, I know you don't like it, but we're going to do it. We're going to have fun.
Look at the way you think you control anything.
Oh, no, no.
You're so cute with, you know what I mean? Like it shows you.
It shows you.
Yeah. And you can't look away.
You can't. And some of that's like, that's part of, again, the transformation of, I get to look at all of these pieces of me, right? It's just kind of at the end, you ask, like, what was that moment like? It was like all my little puzzle pieces that were neatly stacked, blue, on top of a Jack in a Box. I mean, people may not even know what that is anymore, but and then all of a sudden, all my pieces were shattered everywhere. And I'm kind of sitting there looking at them going, all right, well, which ones am I going to take with me? And I gather some of them up. And I think there's a frustration when some of them don't fit where they used to. You're like, well, wait a minute. Like I used to always be able to blah, and it doesn't fit anymore. And, being okay with that. It's like, all right, well, I guess that piece doesn't get to come along the journey with me. And that's okay.
That's not going in my carry-on anymore.
And it's so cool. Like it's kind of been a cool experience because I can pull it forward and pull it towards me and go, okay, I love it. I have so much gratitude for that experience or whatever that gift was. And then I let it go. And so a lot of letting go along the way.
How has that shaped, your answer to the question, who the F am I now?
I remember you asking that. I'm like, holy crap. And no, how has it shaped? I think I've allowed myself to sit in it and really think about those pieces and love the shadow parts, and embrace parts that I hadn't really looked at in years. So it's my sister-in-law had said at one point, she's like, you seem so different. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm more me than I have ever been because everything is stripped away.
Yeah.
You just when you're looking at all your pieces and deciding which ones, it's like you are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is scary. Like vulnerability is just a super scary word. Yet it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It helped me, I think, find my authentic self.
When you put down all the masks, all the roles.
All the masks, all the roles, all gone. And I'm like, yeah, here I am.
Nice to meet you.
It is. Yeah. It is. It is kind of like looking in the mirror going, holy shit. I haven't seen you in a while. Where you been?
You've been there the whole time.
You've been there the whole time. So, it's beautiful. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. The unknown is scary.
But also, that's where I feel like all the magic and the beauty is.
Yeah.
If I were to stay, and then there was magic and beauty, I had a great support system. It's not like I was running from anything. I was running to me.
To yourself.
I was running to me. I'm like, I want to know me without anything else. I literally knew 2 people here in SoCal, in the area I'm in, and was just like, I want to start over. I just want to know me.
I love that. I love it because I know that, when people don't understand what you've been going through for years, especially in the process that you're in, and they just hear that someone's passed and they hear that, well, now she's moved. They might look at that and think she's running. And I don't think they understand the depth to which you need to shift sometimes just to find yourself and just to be with yourself. And the courage that it takes to do that, to move into places that you're not familiar with, because it's so much easier to stay with the familiar, even if, the familiar is not so great, but you know it, you know how to do it. And the courage it takes to go into something that is completely unknown and there are no guarantees and just be like, yeah, I'm in for it. I'm here for it, because literally you've been through hell. And it's like, come at me, life. Like, what else? You have no idea what I'm capable of surviving. And so all of those things that you think are going to scare me are almost laughable or absurd in some way with what you've actually had to endure with no escape from it. It just, you have no choice but to just be in it fully.
Exactly. And I think like I'm the girl that's afraid of her own shadow. Like I don't watch scary movies. When I do, like usually my hands are a jacket over my head.
Your protective fingers that make a small slit.
That small slit, and even then I'm like, ah. Yet like I've sat through a bunch of the things that just scare me. And I'm like, why? Why was I letting some of that, drive my fear? Like why was that? So I think it's been a good experience just sitting in it, sitting with it, not being afraid of it. I'm not being afraid of the experience, not being afraid of the unknown. Because how does it ever become known?
Yeah.
Right?
You are the unknown.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to ask you about this. It's been 1 year? Has it been a year? What has surprised you most about grief 1 year in?
Well, and I kind of knew this, but like I think there was a part of me like, I want to negotiate my timeline with grief, and really, there's no timeline. I think it's surprising on how it affects other people. Like I think even through the process, there would be people that would they saw you and they're like they just kind of avoid you, and I'm like I still see you, like I know, but I think it's other people's avoidance to grief, and maybe because it's so close, right? Like they would have to look at it like, oh my God, what happened if that was happening to me?
Yeah,
if her experience was mine. So I think that was surprising at first. And then I think also the whole period, I called it like sand fog. Like after it happened, it was like I couldn't feel, but I could feel everything. And everything that I would do, it was like sand that would be in my head, yet it was, stuck. It was just the craziest thing. So being able to
like thick
fog.
Yeah.
And so problem solving, not super good. Like I remember I got myself to the grocery store and I run in and I come back out and there were two doors. There was the one that goes all the way in and then the one on the way out. And I got stuck in between them. And I am literally like sitting there and there's like a little tiny gap and I keep looking at it and I just start crying. Like the tears would just come from nowhere. So literally all I needed to do, a man walked up and he goes, he was like, you should go tell people about that. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going back. I'm only going forward. This girl is heading out. So I think it was, problem solving and the fact that, grief just shows up when it wants to. Like it could be a song. It could be like his toolbox, finding like one of his business cards. It shows up unexpectedly. And that's something that, you just sit with because you don't get to negotiate with it.
It doesn't ask you for permission.
Nope.
Is now like an opportune time that I could come? And it's no.
It's like, we're going to sit and right now we're going to have the moment. And, so I think like there was a part of me because I had such a long period of time in the anticipatory grief part that I think I had told myself a story it would be easier on the other side and yet scary, right? Because there was limbo land and I'm like, okay, well, I'm stuck here and I can't move forward and I want to. And yet I have responsibilities and I want to honor all of those responsibilities. And then there's widow land of, holy crap, he's gone. He's gone. And so I think that it was surprising and just like how many times, the grief pops up unexpectedly. What else would surprise me?
How did you start to allow yourself to just allow yourself to be with it, instead of like fighting against it or trying to avoid those moments of the visitor of grief coming? How did you just start to say, they're here again? How do I allow myself the space and give myself grace to just be with this?
I think I look at it as a way of honoring him and me. And I had spent years, kind of being super frustrated with him because of the dementia,
Yeah.
not understanding really all that was wrapped up in that dementia, that it really wasn't him anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the surprising side on the other side in those moments, it's spending time with the memory of him and falling back in love again. And I don't know if that makes any sense,
It does.
but it's, was so frustrated and put all these walls up during, the limbo land so I could be protected and continue to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the widow land side where all your vulnerability, all your stuff is out there. And I'm like, oh, I see you. Like I can see him again. I can see him now through the diseases, which is beautiful. And this was a man that loved me more than life itself. And, being able to sit and, experience that love where I wasn't really allowing myself to do that in the anticipatory time frame, the limbo land.
So actually looking at some of those moments as being beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They are beautiful. It's beautifully messy. It's a beautiful, messy gift.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to see it when you're in the moment because it hurts. And yet there's some absolutely beautiful gifts inside of that.
When you
just have
allow
to look.
yourself.
And you got to look.
Yeah.
You got to look too.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Are there any myths that you wish people understood about grieving?
I think, one, that there's a timeline. I think, I think that there's a timeline, that there's a way you're supposed to feel. Like, again, you're not supposed to move and do all of these things, but really what you need to do is listen to you.
Yeah.
And, I've met people who, on this journey, who got married right away after their spouse passed. And then I've met, some that, years could never do that. And so, I think it's really respecting that everyone has their own experience with it. And
it doesn't fit into a box.
It doesn't fit into a nice, pretty box. So, what else would I say? I don't know right now.
How did your relationship with yourself change during this time? I know you said you got to meet yourself, but I want to know, what is that relationship with yourself now?
Well, I really like who I am. I'm enjoying, just spending time doing the things that I like to do.
Discovering what those things are.
It's rediscovering me. It's just rediscovering. And, again, it's looking at some of those pieces and like, that doesn't fit. Or holy mackerel, why haven't I been doing that?
I missed that.
My love for writing. Like I have really, I've spent a lot of time probably. Most people would say you shouldn't share on social media, but it definitely became a outlet for me as part of mourning. I would look at a picture and I could just really sit with it. I'd match it with a song that I could feel so that I could experience that entire moment. And I'm like, oh, that's joy. Like I went through years not being able to experience joy. And now
you're reintroduced.
I know joy. And it rides with me every single day. So,
did you get any feedback from people who were also on that journey with you, reading, watching, that surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, one, it became a huge support system to me that I didn't know that I had. I think when you're up against a disease like what we were dealing with and dementia specifically, you're kind of embarrassed about some of the things that are happening, and it becomes very lonely and isolating, and you don't reach out. And that became a way, like me slowly sharing it became a way to, one, share what was happening and, receive love back.
Yeah.
But also I did have several people reach out saying, holy mackerel, like, I didn't know you were going through that. Here's what's happening with me. And so it was like you find camaraderie or like
community.
community. And, it was good to know that some of, me sharing it makes it more, hopefully less taboo for others to be able to reach out for help.
Yeah. Because I think that's the thing. We think we're supposed to do it all alone. We're supposed to be strong. We're
Oh,
supposed
no,
to
I was
be.
Superwoman. Like,
Yeah.
I totally thought I was Superwoman. I
yeah.
totally got this. I'm a strong ass woman. Don't ever underestimate that. And you know what grief did? Sat my ass down in time out and said, we're going to talk about all of that. Review everything.
Mm-hmm. And hold it up to the light.
And hold it up to the light. But I think for me, it was like, it's been beautiful having people be able to relate to the experience.
Yeah.
And, hopefully it gives them some of the, like I post some of the things that have worked for me in terms of my healing process, especially like when I was going through as a caregiver, I was not always emotionally centered.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time doing yoga, Pilates. I got fascial massage, really doubled down on sound healing, somatic journey work, and just learning how to move the energy, which was grief and sadness, sitting inside of me and being able to move it out.
Yeah.
Being able to work with horses and the beauty that they bring and the coherence that they bring with you. And so, yeah, lots of amazing techniques as part of all of it.
A lot of different pathways to healing that maybe people wouldn't be thinking of.
For sure. Like, and I have my therapist, like, don't get me wrong, but like, but I think it's it was being willing to explore other things, because there's no one size fits all in your process. And one technique may not work for me, but it may work for others. And I wanted to keep trying.
And I think in some way, for someone who would be reading or watching that, is empowering them to also be able to say, there are other things that you can try. It's okay to keep looking. It's okay to be able to just kind of dive into something that maybe the people around you aren't doing. There's some alternative way. I think the somatic process of processing any kind of emotion is
life-changing.
Yes.
Life-changing.
It's grossly underestimated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your body's way of metabolizing energy, that can feel really stuck and stagnant. So I love that you have included that in your process of not just grieving, but living.
Yeah. I did not understand really how energy affected my body, right? Like, I've always been a super intuitive individual. But, when I finally realized that anxiety is just energy that has no way to go, and I've been very anxious my entire life, high expectations of myself, super driven and super anxious. And I did not know that energy that was stuck in there, that it was stuck.
Yeah.
And so
it wants to move.
It needs out.
Yeah.
And it was through a process where a friend of mine had been getting certified in somatic healing. And she was like, I gotta take somebody through 10 sessions. I'm sure she was thinking, this girl's going to be easy. I'm like, oh, sucker. But it was the most life-changing experience ever. And learning.
What was that moment of, this is a life-changing experience? What happened?
I think it was just, the feeling, it feels different. That's all I can say, is like that when the energy leaves, it's like, it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was stuck there. It's trauma. Yeah. It's an experience. It's a moment. It's so yeah, it's
like somebody says, give me that ton of bricks.
And lifts it away from you.
And you're like, whoa, I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I was carrying that.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's I think it was a combination of things, but I do think that was life-changing.
Yeah. I'm so glad you found that pathway.
Yeah, me too.
What are the things, because I know you recently moved to California. So how has that changed your energy or your perspective?
Well, it's not rainy every day. Being in the sun is super healing for me. And just, being able to, I'm 45 minutes from the beach now and can take myself there whenever I want. I think it's just, it's felt healing. I call it my healing house, the house that I'm in. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a little sound room where like I've got my sound bowls and I play every day. So it's my healing house. It's my healing space.
So you've been exploring sound healing, coaching, retreats. how did those callings come to life?
Well, first of all, I love well-being. I started my positive psychology certification during COVID and just fell in love with understanding all the aspects of how to live a purposeful life. And I'm also hugely passionate about technology and some of the technology that comes, the biohacking involved. And so definitely want to explore that. And, coming to your place and seeing how you have integrated some of that into the healing experience, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. So I think it just, I feel like when it lights your passion, you got to follow it. And
you can feel that full body yes.
It's a yes. It's a yes.
Like wild horses could not keep me from this.
Yeah. So and because of the changes it's made in me, the sound healing has been a big, also moves energy and
Frequency.
Playing the bowls is just, there's nothing that, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? It's an incredible experience of shifting energy, shifting focus, being present in the moment. And the retreats, I had looked for retreats for my kids and I to go to begin to, continue to process. And I want them to have the skills, that it takes to, to kind of make it through this crazy world.
Yeah.
And grief certainly doesn't make that easier for you. And yet there were no retreats really for grief and that focused on the healing process. So I would love to be able to give back. I feel like, passion being, healing and well-being and technology aligned with purpose of being able to give back. And, I love being able to coach and mentor people. That was something I loved doing as part of my career. And being able to bring that all together in a time of need when somebody's really struggling. And showing them, demonstrating all these different techniques that maybe you don't get to touch in everyday life. If that makes a difference in just one person's world, that would be good for me.
I feel like your life, your journey of your life, even from working in tech through the grieving journey, like you have been building the curriculum for exactly where you are right now. Like literally like squeezing every bit of the juice out of every lesson that has come your way and having to like look at it up close, put it up to the light has sort of, I don't know, beautifully built this house that you're in now of your life. What does joy feel like to you now?
Oh my gosh. It feels, well, first of all, it's just wonderful. I look at life so differently. Like I look at all the things that used to just stress the shit out of me. And now I'm like, well, why was I so worried about that? And what was I worried? Like, that's crazy. Why? And what it did to my poor nervous system. I think I was so dysregulated for so many years that, which stopped joy, right? When you're in the midst of grief and everything that was happening, joy is just a mystery. And now just sitting with it, and if it feels pretty awesome. It feels pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's just nice to feel that experience. And I think for a period of time, I thought of feeling joy, I felt guilty about it. And sometimes it still will pop up. Like, it's like you're not supposed to feel joy when you're grieving. And actually it's the opposite. It is like the best way to demonstrate the love that you experienced, because your person would not want you sitting in a big pile, in your jammies, eating chocolates. Well, I've done that, crying, listening to sad songs. Totally did that.
Done that.
Don't want you doing that. Like they want you out experiencing life. So to me, that's the best gift that you could give to your loved one, is showing that joy in yourself.
I love that. And, really, you've already answered my last question. But if there's more that you want to add, because the question is, what message would you share with someone listening who's in their first year of loss?
It's probably the same. I got like 6 G's of grief that I came up with. And the first is gratitude and being grateful for all of the lessons, all of the love, all of the people who supported you along the way. Gratitude, just gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then grounding, which is really being able to find the strategies that ground you, that bring you back to the here and now. So that, again, that could be yoga, it could be sewing, it could be horseback riding, it could be, it could be anything that makes you kind of feel whole again and be in that present moment. So there was grief, there's grounding, there's grace. Grace was the other one. Grace, it's not perfect. It's super, super, super messy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think so. It's giving grace to yourself. It's being graceful to others, because not everybody can support you along your journey.
Yeah.
They can't sit with you when you're in your pain. And that's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on where they're at. And it's not a bad thing. It's not about judgment. It's just that, not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not going to handle your shit right. And you got to give yourself grace and forgiveness in that experience. And I think that's true of both in limbo land and in widow land.
Yeah.
The other one, G, was going through. So you may think that you can schedule your grief. You can, there's no way to go through this, but you got to feel it to heal it.
Yep.
Period.
Can't go around it. Can't go under it.
Nope.
Can't go over it.
Nope. You're gonna go right through it. And I think the other one is grit.
Yes.
It's like you're stronger than you know. You made it through this horrific event. And now you look and you're like, okay, now recognize the strength that you had as you went through that. And it doesn't just disappear. It's something you carry with you.
You get to
and
take
now
that
it's
with
like,
you.
whoa, holy shit, I made it through. So I think it's that grit. And the last, so is that, am I at 6 yet? I don't know.
I don't think so.
So group, community. Get your community. Find the people that can support you. Understand that, again, not all of them. It could be through. I went to my very, very first grief group. I was telling somebody else about it. I was like, "Hey, you should go to this grief group," and I'm like, "Wait, why am I not going?" So I went, and it was beautiful. Yeah. It was beautiful. It was called Waves of Grief, and being able to find people who can understand. Not everybody understands the experience, and that's okay. They will someday, because nobody gets out of this.
We're
alive.
not escaping
That's
it.
not, no. So so I had grace, grief, grit, gratitude, going through, and group.
I love that. You're going to have to publish this book at some point that you've been writing for some time right now with your life.
I think I have been writing it. I think a lot of it is posted on Facebook. When I look back and read through some of it, I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So I think so. And again, if it's more again, when I started thinking about doing this, I wanted to honor myself and my experience, my children and their experience, my husband and their experience, and I wanted to be able to give back.
Yeah.
And if it's a way that, if it just helps one person who knows they're not alone, that they can make it through, it's if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. I like to just picture if this podcast was reaching you 1 year ago, how that may have helped, just to feel that there is a way through and that you're right, you're not alone and it doesn't need to look a certain way.
No.
Yeah. I really applaud your courage for coming on today. And I'm so happy you did.
Thank you. I remember my daughter, I think I shared with you that before I came in, she's like, are you nervous? I'm like, oh my God, yes, I'm super scared. And she's like, Why? You've already lived the hardest part.
Yes.
So we lived the hardest part. We made it through. And
might as well enjoy the ride.
now we're going to enjoy. Now I am going to enjoy the ride. It's going to happen. Like I look at life so differently. It's beautiful. I look for beauty every single day in everything. In the clouds and the water and just people walking by. I experience life living in the present moment now.
I love that. I hope everyone who's listening can take that piece of it with them. Like whatever you're training yourself to look for, you will find it. And if it's looking for beauty, if it's looking for grace, it will show up for you.
Yep.
So thank you, Nicole. Thank you for being with me today. And we will have you back on. And to all of you listening today, I hope that you can send this on to someone you love or find some comfort and joy in it yourself. And thank you for listening. We love you.
All right, that's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.